love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror if he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better.
All right, welcome to the Fantasy Six Pack 2022 Fantasy Football Team Previews. Right now, we're going to be covering the Houston Texans. Joining me tonight to record these is Mr. Dave Eddy from Fantasy Six Pack, and yeah, let's just jump right into things here, man. We've got our trusty Houston Texans right there. So we're going to jump right in here and do the, if it works, there we go. Davis Mills is our starting quarterback with an overall ranking of 223, quarterback 28. His backup sitting there is Kyle Allen. So obviously all the focus on Davis Mills here, Dave. Is he a viable backup QB in fantasy this season, considering kind of his job security at this point? I don't think anybody's expecting Kyle Allen to take over.
No, I mean, I think the one thing that Davis Mills has going for him is, barring injury, it'd be really hard for him to get benched. So at the bare minimum, that you're going to, get him on the field. And I don't think Davis Mills is really as bad as people might think he is. I think he actually played pretty well, all things considered, last year. It's just a shame he doesn't have a little bit more than Brandin Cooks to throw the ball to, and doesn't really have a good running game. So I mean, it's a lot on his shoulders. I could live with him as a QB2 if I had to. It's not preferable, but at least I feel like there's job security. It's not ideal, but I can deal with it.
Yeah, I feel you there with the whole, is he a QB2, in two QB leagues? Obviously, nobody's targeting him in a single QB league, but it's one of those, you're right. I mean, the weapons are pretty bad, and they didn't really give him any help in the draft either. We'll get to that, but I mean, I do completely agree with you. I think he is a better quarterback than what I think a lot of us expected. He had some really good games last year.
Yeah, and he ended the season not too bad. I mean, if I'm looking at his last 5 games, they're not bad. I mean, we're looking at double-digit touchdowns in most of them, hit over 300 yards a couple of times, over 250 another time. He's not that bad. Again, I don't think I'm even targeting him necessarily as a QB2. But again, if the draft doesn't really fall the way that you want it to and you get quote-unquote stuck with him, I think you could do worse, honestly, with guys that are probably just slightly ranked higher than he is.
Yeah, I mean, so you mentioned the end of the season there, right? Mm-hmm. He finished as QB 15 the last 5 weeks of the season.
Yeah, so that's...
I mean, you're going to live with that as a QB2, And I think the potential is there for him to kind of fall into that territory more often than not. So yeah, we've all got him buried in the rankings, rightfully so, because the team around him isn't good. But I mean, he proved that he can perform despite that. So something to kind of keep an eye on for the back end of your drafts there in 2 QB or super flex leagues for sure. Moving on here, though, to the running backs, and we've got Marlon Mack, Dameon Pierce, Rex Burkhead, Dare Ogunbowale, and Royce Freeman. And I promise you, I didn't practice Ogunbowale. I'm just that good. Yeah. So Marlon Mack leads the way here by rankings with 166 overall and RB 54. Then Dameon Pierce 170 and 55, and Rex Burkhead a bit farther behind there. So I don't know, man. I mean, are you trusting anybody in this Houston backfield as an option, even as like a bench stash?
I'm not drafting them. I can't say mid-season if one of them is all of a sudden a focal point due to injury or something like that. But even then, I don't know how much I trust it. I think this is a backfield that I would just safely avoid. There's so many teams that have, multiple running backs that I would even trust their no doubt number 2 over my pick of the litter of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, you give me Marlon Mack a few years ago, maybe we're talking something, but I'm not really buying it now.
And they're probably going to be trailing and having to throw the ball, so it's just not a group that I think makes a ton of sense to be interested in at all.
I 100% agree, and I'm blanking on what round Dameon Pierce was drafted in. I'm seeing here 4th round. So I mean, like, not a lot of draft capital there for them to kind of force his way onto the field. 4th round, whatever. I mean, look, we've seen later round running backs kind of make a dent before, sure, but I don't think Dameon Pierce is anything anybody's super excited about.
And that's usually on better teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, again, I'm a Lions fan, so I'm not sitting there trashing on the Texans. I'm just being for real,
No, and that's what we're here for. Give the people what they need to know. All right, wide receivers led the way here with Mr. Brandin Cooks. Then fallen down the ranks quite a bit here. Nico Collins, John Mechie, Chris Conley, Chris Moore, and Philip Dorsett kind of rounded out. Brandin Cooks is really the talk of this team when it comes to fantasy football. Overall ranking at 55, wide receiver 20. I mean, he is, in my opinion, kind of underrated. Is that, if that's possible? Like, he just churns out like 1,000-yard seasons, I feel like. But I mean, what's your take on Cooks? I mean, like, the volume's there, right? Is it enough to maybe vault him into wide receiver 1 territory?
He was a little hit and miss. He would have these games where he would get 11, 12, 14 targets quite considerably, but then there would be a stretch where he would have 3, 5, 6. And for me, part of the problem is it's so easy to just kind of try to take Brandin Cooks out of the game.
That's very true.
But I think that having a healthy Nico Collins, adding John Mechie to the mix, I think that good. Should open some stuff up, because just pure talent wise, I think that Davis and Cooks both are underrated, and I think pairing them two together could be quite promising and very underrated. I don't know that I would say he's overall underrated. I mean, wide receiver 20, that feels pretty close. It's
actually better than what I thought I was going to see, honestly. So, I feel like I've seen him buried in mocks more so. That I think his ADP is really low. The rankers seem to like him better than the ADP.
But I mean, I really am a Nico Collins guy a little bit as far as somebody under the radar. I mean, maybe I'm a little bit of a homer because he's a Michigan guy. But I mean,
there it is.
Yeah, I know. But I mean, he was someone that, at least from like a DFS perspective, towards the end of the year, he's a guy that we were kind of looking at as, could he have a breakout?
Yeah.
The opportunities were there. And so I think that leads directly into what you think of him as a redraft, perspective. He may probably just end up being like a bye-week fill-in guy, but it's not impossible to see him putting up like wide receiver 3 numbers. I think that Davis Mills, Brandin Cooks, and Nico Collins all could be viable, because I don't see him running the ball for a variety of reasons. Like I said earlier, I think they're going to be coming from behind. So I could see all 3 of those guys being viable and out producing their ADP.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I mean, I'm not exactly sure what Brandin Cooks' ADP is right now, but I do know that I'm looking at it last year. I mean, the dude had 134 targets. That's insane. And he's had over 1,000 yards both seasons with Houston. So I am perfectly happy with that as like a wide receiver too. And because I as much as I think Collins is like sort of a dark horse that, let's take a dart throw at him. I mean, the ball is going to Brandin Cooks like probably way more often than anybody else in this offense. So
I just looked up, as of 5/23, his ADP is pretty much what it says on the screen, 55.3. That has been pretty consistent over the last 2 weeks. It's fluctuated from a low of 54.7 to a high of 55.3. So he's maintained that 55 pretty consistently.
I feel like I've done some mocks where I've gotten him much later than that.
It's possible.
Maybe, it could just be whoever I'm drafting with. But anyway, let's finish off here with our tight ends, and not really much to get excited about here. Led by Brevin Jordan, we got Pharaoh Brown and Tegan. This one I'm not going to get. Quitoriano. Sure. I mean, I think people sort of liked Brevin Jordan a little bit last year. Anything to get excited about with him is possibly, just being like somebody after the first week or two, we're going to be like, oh, we need to pick up Brevin Jordan off the waiver wire, because tight end usually sucks.
Yeah, I think once you get outside of maybe the top 8 tight ends, they all become
maybe not even 8. maybe not even 8.
But once you get to this level,
you get your point.
They're all touchdown dependent. I
Correct.
think you can do a lot worse than Brevin Jordan. I think Brevin Jordan has a lot of upside. He's probably more of a dynasty kind of a target than he probably is in redraft this year.
Agreed.
If you're rostering 2 tight ends, so if you have a tight end on the bench, I don't hate having Brevin Jordan because I think the upside is potentially there. I just doubt that he gets anywhere close to it.
Yeah, his best game was 3 catches for 41 yards and a touchdown last year. That's fine. Honestly, that's going to be like tight end 1, sadly. Yeah. But it's not really working. So, all right, man. Well, that's it for the Houston Texans. I want to thank you all for tuning in, and make sure you hit those subscribe buttons. Leave those comments. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you. Tune in to the next one. Peace.